Well, before I share my presentation, I would really like to thank Ram for the kind introduction. And without wasting time, I would like to share the presentation for today's talk. So, is it visible, Ram?
Yes, it is visible. Really beautiful title slide. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just figure out how I can. Okay, yeah, that's perfect. So, again, hello everyone, good morning and good evening. My name is Swapnil, and today's talk gonna be about beetle diversity and beetle evolution, and as well as beetle as food for the future. So, without wasting time, okay, yeah. So for today's talk, this talk, as I said, it's gonna be in three parts. First, we're gonna dive into beetles diversity, and then we're gonna talk about why these beetles are so successful and what are the evolutionary adaptations that made them successful throughout the course of history. And lastly, we will focus on the interesting topic. It's about the beetles as a food. Yes, you heard correctly, beetles as a food. So that's going to be interesting, I feel, because it's like very new topic. And
Swapnil,
currently,
may I just ask you
yeah.
to stop? Some people are saying that they can't see the slides.
All right.
No, no,
Yeah.
just keep your presentation on. Keep your presentation on.
Just give me a minute. Okay. Okay. Now.
Uh, yeah, just give me a thumbs up, everybody, if you can see the presentation. Yeah, okay. I think
All
I
right.
think it's visible. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
No, no, no worries, no worries. Yeah. Glad I got to know early than I started. Yeah. So next, I have a small, not a quiz, but like a question. Like what you have to do is like first you have to identify. So I have a group, few insects on screen, and what you have to do is like you have to identify beetles. So there are there are beetles or there is a beetle, so you have to count a number, like how many beetles do you see in this image, particular image. So you have like about 5 seconds, so I'm gonna give you 5 seconds time and just take 5 seconds and try to find which one is the beetle, real beetle. So your time starts now.
Somya Agarwal says two beetles.
Okay.
Santosh Priyanshu Chaudhary says screen not visible. Manjusha says one scarabid beetle. Jagruti Barot says two beetles. Very fast. Another scarab beetle, one beetle last from middle, one dung beetle, one black beetle.
Okay.
2 2 1 2 4 3 2. Somebody said
Perfect.
one black dung beetle not visible, sir, please. Those For those who are not able to see the screen, I recommend that you join back, because I think most other people are able to see the screen. HP says one beetle, third down on the bottom line. Two
Yeah.
beetles says Atharva Nema.
Okay.
uh, yeah.
Perfect.
Three beetles
So
says Kishan Lal. Yeah.
yeah,
Two beetles
so
are.
it's glad to know that people are observing beetle, and the answer gonna be one. So whoever has answered one, they are correct. It's gonna be scarab beetle and Coleoptera. And if you feel that you did not identify correctly, I have another slide for you to identify a few more beetles. So again, I'm gonna give you 5 seconds of time, and now you have to identify, like just tell the number how many beetles are there. So in total there are 11 images, so you can just say 5, 3, 4, 10, 11, whatever you think. So you have like 5 more seconds to identify beetles. So I think many of you might have already guessed a number, and if you want to share your thoughts, like what do you think, how many beetles are there, like just one or two people, that would be great, so I will
Yeah,
know that.
sorry, I was on mute. We've
Oh,
got a
okay, okay.
couple of answers of all beetles. Mostly the answers are between 3 and 5, 2 and 5. But there are
Okay,
some answers of all of them, 11 of them, 8 of them. Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
So
One
yes,
weevil also.
Okay, that's good to know that people are observing beetles and weevils as well. So that's really good to know at this point of the talk that already few participants started identifying difference between beetle and weevil, and we will talk about that in detail later. But yes, if you have identified all of them, then that's a correct. And I would say even if you have identified like 10 beetles, that's also correct because one of the glowworm, that's the larval stage. So I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't expect you to identify that. So based on these photos, now you know, like you have many of you have identified like 3 or 4 or 10 beetles, right? But like if you think about a minute and ask yourself, how did you identify, what made you think that these are beetles and not bugs or butterflies? So there are some characters that are peculiar in beetles, right? So we're gonna dive into that. And first of all, I want to start with why beetles. Why do we care about beetles? So, well, to tell you that 1 in every 4 animal species is a beetle. What that means is like if you line up all kingdom Animalia, and every fourth one would be a beetle. So they are tremendously diverse group, and they has around 400,000 known species. So I'm talking about the known species, and there are estimates where scientists have estimated around 1 million of beetle species. So when you think about 400,000 known beetle species, so to give you to give you context, so think about the mammals. So we have around 5,500 species of mammals, and everyone are amazed by mammals, right? So there are only 5,000 species of nearly 6,000 species of mammals. Whereas beetles, when you compare, there are 400,000 of beetles with different patterns, different coloration, different species. And that's why this species or this this group becomes so successful, and it has like large vast amount of species diversity. And then again, why do we care about beetles? So well, for beetles also help they have ecological roles. So one of the major role is pollinators, so they pollinate magnolia and mango trees and etc. Next, they are decomposers. So if you have seen dung beetle, they decompose the dung and they feed their pupal or larval stages on these dung beetles. So that's how they recycle dung, as they help decompose the dung. Lastly, they also play key role in pest controlling. So many farmers, if you have observed, they use this small beetles called coccinellidae, or you commonly we call as ladybird beetle. So they have evolved in a such way that they feeds on aphids. So whenever like in farms, like when uh, plants gets affected with this aphids, so the main biocontrol, what we call is biocontrol, is the coccinellidae beetle. So many farmers use that as well to control the pest. And where to find these beetles? So these beetles, they found everywhere on earth except Antarctica. And if you ask yourself why not Antarctica, so well, there is no habitat for these beetles to survive. That's the main reason we don't see any beetles on Antarctica. So next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the scientific classification of beetles. So to give you just outline what is scientific classification. So imagine you have thousands of animals and you have to classify them based on particular character, right? So scientists already came up with this great idea of classification, where they have classified each organism based on some certain characters. So to talk about Coleoptera belongs to the kingdom Animalia, and then the phylum Arthropoda and class Insecta, where all insect belongs. And under the Insecta, again under order Coleoptera, all beetles are grouped together. So as I said before, this is the largest insect order, and they can range, their size can be less than 1 mm to 12 centimeter. So just to give you comparison, so you when you many of us use the scale, right? The 15, that the scale is like 15 centimeters. So imagine that 12 centimeter insect, which is like almost the almost your size of your hand. And also these beetles, they have more than 200 families. Again, under order, again scientists have identified, or not identified, but like they have organized all these beetles based on different families. So we're going to talk about the families later, but just imagine having 200 different families, and under that then again you have genus and species. So here I have an image about diversity of beetles. So it ranges from different, or not order, different families, and also you can see the different sizes. Next, let's talk about the morphology. So as I mentioned before, these beetles comes under class Insecta, and one of the peculiar character to identify whether it's insect or arachnid is to look at the pair of legs. So Insecta normally, they usually, not normally, I'm sorry, Insecta has three pairs of legs. That means they have six legs. Whereas there is a misconception about insects and arachnids. Many people think the ticks or mites, they are insect, but not. In reality, they are not insect. Or even spider, many of people think spiders are insects, but they are arachnids because of the appendages or the legs they have. Ticks and mite and spiders, they have eight legs, whereas insects generally they have six legs. And to how to identify a beetle, how would we know that the organism you're looking, or the animal or insect you're looking at, it's beetle and not bug? So one of the important character that can identify beetle is their hardened front wings. We what we often call is the elytra. And this elytra is nothing but a covering for the wings. Under this elytra you would see the wing, which actually used for flying purposes. So this elytra is just a protection for the wings and also for the body. And then, and one more character I forgot to mention is about the beetle body is divided into three parts. First is head, then the second part is thorax, and then the abdomen. So head has thorax mainly contain, or they have the all appendages like legs connected to it, and then the abdomen. And then there are multiple types of antennal variation in beetles that you can we will see as we go ahead. And then they have the large compound eyes as usual like other insects. Then about beetle biology. So beetles are one of the uh, oldest group which evolved themselves with the complete metamorphosis. So what when I say complete metamorphosis, that means insects, especially the beetles, they have four life stages. They first lay eggs, and then they have the larval form, and within larval form they have two to three different stages where they grow. And once they grow to the full size larva, and then they turn into pupal stage, and last is emerging stage, which is called adult, where they fully form the wings and their structure. So the pupal stage is mostly resting phase, whereas the larval stage is going to be mostly feeding stage. So also these beetles, they feed on different plants, and they, some of them feed, they are predators, decomposers, and also scavengers. So again I have a figure at the bottom of the slide that shows the different types of larvae. So these are just larval forms of beetles. So you can imagine the, so what you see right now, it, when they turn into adults, they are gonna look completely different with the good coloration, different metallic blue coloration, or any black, any like they will have different kind of colorations. Next, let's talk about the few major families. So I have not included all families. As I mentioned, there are like nearly 200 families, and it would be impossible for us to sit and just go through all 200 families. So I have included few families which has like some fun fact associated with them. So first one is Scarabidae. They are also called as the common example of Scarabidae are dung beetles or June beetles, and they are known for their digging abilities. So they feed on, as I mentioned, they feed on dung and decaying matter. So the figure here, you can see that the bottom one shows the dung beetle carrying dung to their nest. Then also these beetles are sacred in few cultures, like in Egypt these beetles, especially Scarabidae, are the symbol of rebirth. And when we talk about the ecological role, as I mentioned before, they are decomposers. They recycles nutrient in ecosystem, so they play major role in our biodiversity. So whenever you see dung beetle, please do not kill them. They are helping you to recycle these all dung. And then these beetles can be, especially dung beetles, they are mostly shiny and sometimes they are very black or some metallic colors. Next, we have Weevil family, and this is one of the largest beetle family, or like around 60,000 species have been reported or have been described under this family. And one of the peculiar character about these weevils or the family is that their long curved snout. So what you see in normally in beetle, they have the, even though these beetles also have the chewing type of mouth parts, but their head, they have long curved snout like a rostrum, and they feed on variety of plants, and they also feed on some paste crops as well as the stored grains. So you might have seen very tiny beetles sometimes in with rice or any wheat grains. So those are the beetles, and they can be 1 millimeter to they can literally bigger like red palm beetle. They are really huge. Next, this is one of my favorite family. The reason I'm saying that it's my favorite family because when I started working, or not working, when I started collecting insect, one of the insect that draw my attention was the longhorn beetle. And we might have seen that mango stem borer. So the reason they call stem borer because they live inside live timber tree or oak trees inside life, or for that matter even mango trees. So these can be identified. This is the one of the easiest or like simplest insect that you can identify based on their antennal length. So these can, their antenna can be very long, as much as like longer than their abdomen, sometimes twice or thrice longer than their body. So that's gonna be the simplest character that you can see and like immediately identify up to the family level. And they are brightly colored with pattern, as you can see in the bottom figure. It has like blue and black coloration. And they also play some role in nutrient cycles, but they are, most of them are, as I said, they are paste of timber wood. Then next we have dermestid beetle. These are small to medium sized beetle and flat and hairy beetles. This gonna play really important. They play really important role in recycling animal remains. Excuse me. So they feed mainly on animal skin. So the figure in the bottom you see is the figure I have taken from Natural History Museum, where these beetles are rare and they use this beetle frequently to clear bones. So whenever they want in Natural History Museum, they want to have a skeleton, so they feed any organism which is died, like, and these beetles help them clear all flesh. And what you see after some time, it's just the bones, and that's what they we used in museums then. And then, excuse me, we have an interesting uh, beetle, that's the fireflies. Many of us might have seen fireflies before, and if you haven't seen before, then I would urge you that at least once in your life you should see these beetles. So these beetles, or the family of fireflies, they have nearly 2000 species. And what makes them so interesting is that light they emit, or the bioluminescence they have, and this is generated without any heat. It's a pure chemical reaction that creates this light. So, and another interesting factor about these beetles is that each species has its own unique flashing pattern. So imagine you lined up 2000 beetles, and each of them has different flashing pattern. That's amazing. Like, you cannot even imagine, and these males and females, they coordinate, and they when they look at these flashing patterns, they use that as to find each other. So the figure at the bottom, you see all this yellow light, these are the fireflies. So this image is not from India, but like I couldn't find a image from India where we have like lots and lots fireflies. So this image was taken in somewhere in North America. So I haven't seen such huge number of fireflies yet, but would be interested to see a few. And then one more thing, interesting thing about these beetles. So predators may do not eat these beetles due to the chemicals. As I said, this light is already like they produce this light using chemicals. So because they have these chemicals, predator do not eat them. So because it became testful. And one of the major uh, what we would call threat to these beetles nowadays is that the habitat destruction. So these beetles are facing huge problem, and I'm sure there are groups working on fireflies conservation. So they really need attention due to the habitat destructions, and their decreasing number day by day. Next, we have the diving beetles. These are the water beetles. So these beetles have aquatic life, and their streamlined body, you can see in these figures, they help them swim fastly, and also they have adapted different kinds of legs. That's the swimming legs, what you can see at one pair of leg in seabeaster species, right? These legs help them swim very fast, and this can be found in ponds, lakes, and even in streams. So these are very common beetles. If you during monsoon season, if you go to any stream or pond or lake, you'll generally find out these beetles. Next, one of the interesting beetle, these belongs to the family Carabidae. These are commonly known as ground beetle, and what the beetle I'm talking about is bombardier beetle. This is one of the dangerous beetle, I would say, because of the chemical they spray on their predator. So they have unique ability to combine two different chemicals, as you can see in the first figure, hydroquinone and then the hydrogen peroxide. So in their abdomen, they mix these two chemicals, and that reaction can that reaction chamber can heat up to 100 degrees Celsius, and they spray this chemical on their predator in their defense. So these are mostly associated with the ground grasses. So I would suggest, if you see any beetle like this pattern particularly, do not touch them. If you touch, you're gonna have severe consequences. So I okay, and then all right. So until this point, we have talked about the major beetle diversity, and now I want you to take you to the another interesting section about beetle evolution and what makes them so successful. So here again, I have a quiz for you. So it's a quiz time. So what you have to do is in this question here, which I have, you have to answer which evolved first in a way that, like, if you think that human came first, then you can order based on B, then C, and A. So you have another 5 seconds to rearrange the order and tell first which one is the oldest, which group do you think is evolved first.
Lots of
So
answers coming in. CAB seems to be the consensus.
okay.
C, A, and B. Everyone seems to be writing just that. ABC is there. ACB is there. CAB. CAB,
Okay.
CAB, CA, CAB. Yeah, that seems to be the most predominant answer.
I'm really glad that many of the participants have chosen orders C, A, and B. It's really glad to know that's the correct answer. That's that's okay. I have what you have answered is correct, but here I have changed the sequence. So beetles came first, then dinosaurs and humans. That's gonna be the correct sequence. So now let's talk about the geological time scale. So those of who doesn't know what is geological time scale, so I'm gonna try to explain in a bit. So geological time scale is like Earth's calendar. So what it tells, it gives us the entire history of planet Earth. When did formation of Earth started, and what's the current where we are at. So this time scale is divided into four different periods, not periods, sections. First is eon, and then era, period, and epoch. So you do not need to know this at this point. So what I want you to remember is these number you see 0, 1.8, 50, and when we start from bottom is 4,540. So these numbers are in millions of years ago. So so what it tells us, so if you look at from the bottom of the figure, which is 4,540, that means around 4.5 billion years ago, where that's the time when formation of Earth started. And it took nearly 500 million years for Earth's crust to cool down and start forming different continents. And then around 500 or 2.5 billion years later, first bacteria evolved. And now I'm not gonna read through all major events, but like I'm gonna emphasis on the few events that really needed for our talk. So when you look at the time scale, you see 400, number 400, that's where first seed plant evolved. Those are gymnosperms. So the gymnosperms are mainly conifers, and they are they have a naked seed, that's what we call. So these evolved first. And the reason I'm uh, talking about plants, you might be wondering why we are when the talk is about beetles, why are we talking about plants? So the answer going to be these are interconnected, and they have the plants and beetles, they have co-evolved together. So next, after so we have 400 around 400 million years, we have first plant, that is gymnosperm. And after 100 million years, first insect evolved, that is going to be I mean the first beetle evolved, and that was during carboniferous period. So that took like nearly 100 million years for beetles to evolve, right? And then later, so again, if you want to compare or you want to think about the feeding, think about the biology, and then you can also connect that with the history. So I have an example about Bupristidae, which are commonly known as jewel beetles. So so these jewel beetles, they mainly feed on wood. And why would be the reason they are feeding on wood and not on the plant? So well, I have an answer for that. So these beetles, if you look at, so this is the on right hand side, what you see the figure. This is the calibrated phylogenetic tree. So you do not need to know what actually that means, but what it tells us is that it gives the history of the each beetle family when they have evolved. So when I look at the Buprestidae, which is hardly visible in this figure, but the what I have highlighted here is that box. What it shows that the Buprestidae evolved around 225 years ago, million years ago. So what that means at that time, if you think the timeline, at that time we had mainly gymnosperms, which did not have any flowers, right? So they were mainly wood available, only wood bark were available. That's where these beetles have evolved, and they started feeding on this wood continuously, and that's how they have turned into wood feeders. Next, we have dinosaurs. So everyone knows dinosaurs thanks to the movie Jurassic Park. So you might be wondering that dinosaurs may have evolved before than beetles, but that's the incorrect answer. So dinosaurs evolved after 100 years of beetles. So you can think how ancient these beetles are. So so that the only reason I wanted to highlight is the time period when these dinosaur evolved. So you will have some idea. So dinosaur evolved and then they extinct as well, but still beetles are surviving throughout this period and they are still here, diversifying day by day. So next, the third most and very important period of like beetle diversification is the flowering plant. So what we call is the angiosperm radiation, or the period mainly in Cretaceous around 125 million years ago, first flowering plant evolved. And why it was important for beetles, because imagine when these beetles were there during the gymnosperm, they did not have many options to feed on, right? But as the flowering plants started evolving and different plants started evolving, so beetles started getting different habitat for food, and they started getting different needs. They started getting different food preferences as well. So this Cretaceous period, it was the very important period, and I want to remember this period because we're gonna talk about in detail about this period in next slide. So as I mentioned, Cretaceous period was the key period for angiosperm radiation and as well as beetle radiation. So what is mean by radiation here is that radiation means that it's the diversification from they gonna like they quickly diversify to the different habitats and they have evolved among themselves. So this image on the right hand side I have taken from one of the paper which was published in Nature Communication. So in this figure, we have different orders of insects, and what it shows. So bottom line here again, it shows the time scale that we have talked, the geological time scale, and then on the left hand side, it has the number of insect families. So the easy way that I can interpret this data is going to be like, so if you look at number 300 at the bottom, where we are focusing on brown line. So insects, especially the Coleoptera, is evolved somewhere around during that period, right? And at that time, if you look at the left hand side where it says zero, that means there were zero families. And as you go little bit up, if you can see my cursor, that the insect families, that means the insect families were particularly coleopteran families were evolving, and there were more number of families. So then as they evolved and they reached the period where angiosperm started evolving, we had at that time 75 families, which I have marked with the red arrow. So after having flowering plants, what you see is that they evolved very fastly, and right now we have nearly 200 beetle families. So what made them successful? So the answer is going to be these flowering plants. So that's what I mentioned before. When these flowering plants evolved, they also diversified these beetles, and hence we have the large number of beetles in Coleoptera. And one more important thing that I would like to mention, for that I would like to go back to the one slide behind and give you some sense of extinction. So we all have heard about the mass extinction, right? So when beetle evolved, that was the period of 300 million years ago. And after that, what you see here, the Permian, Triassic, and KT, this shows the mass extinction of the Earth's biodiversity. What that means, at during that time, Permian period, first mass extinction, nearly 95% of Earth's biodiversity extinct. And then Triassic period, 85% of biodiversity again extinct. And then last extinction, again 80% of biodiversity extinct. That's the time when all dinosaurs also extinct. So these beetles have survived all those three mass extinctions. So they are ancient survivor as well. So now to give you again, you do not need to get confused at this slide. So what I want to focus here is that, so they, as I mentioned in our first section, diversity, where these weevils, they have 60,000 of species. That's the largest number of species under family, right? So why do they have 60,000 of species when, so this figure here, it shows that, so the arrows, this shows the family Curculinidae, which is the weevil family. They evolved during the time of this flowering plants. And when you see this, most of the weevils, they are mainly associated with the flowers. So flowers. So that's what you can see in the figure, left hand side on right left hand side figure, the weevil. Uh, so this is the main reason that these beetle families, mainly Chrysomelidae also, which is also commonly known as leaf beetles, they feed on leaf because of the flowering plants, and they have evolved during that time, and that's the reason, because of the flowering plants they have more number of species. So that's how they have co-evolved together and diversified together, and that's what I want you to focus on this slide. So don't get confused with the figure. It might seem very confusing at this point. So main takeaway from this figure is that these Curculinidae, or the weevils, they evolved during uh, flowering plant period, and that's the reason they have like many numbers of species. And another interesting relationship I would like to talk about is the magnolia and beetle relationship. So why I would want to emphasize on this particular relationship is because magnolia is one of the oldest lineage of flowering plants, and their reproduction does not occur. So they do not have bees or butterflies feeding on them, because of they do not have any nectar. This flower does not have any nectar, and they are mainly pollinated by beetles. So this flowering plant, they have evolved themselves in a way that they can accommodate these beetles and they can help them pollinate. So it's the mutualistic relationship, right? Where the beetles get food from plants, and then the these flowering plants get pollinated by the beetles. So how did they do that? First, what they did, the plants, they evolved themselves in the large bowl shaped flowers so they can accommodate beetle, and then they have evolved scent of ripe fermented fruit so that can attract beetle towards them, and that's how beetle can come and then they can feed on these pollens. And as I mentioned, mainly these beetles used to feed on flowers, right? So they used to, earlier they used to feed on petals as well. But to counterpart that thing, what these plants have done, they have evolved their petals very thicky and leathery. So the petals were very thick, and that's where then insects stopped eating those petals and they started eating more of pollen, more of pollen. So that's how this magnolia and beetle relationship have evolved. And next, to summarize beetle evolution, I just want to again not to confuse you all, but just to give you brief about what we have talked throughout this beetle evolution. So first we talked about this first seed plant, that is gymnosperm. So this is the timeline that you will then you will understand how the evolution has happened. So first, around 400 million years ago, first seed plant came, and after 100 million years ago, first beetle species evolved, and after that, just to give comparison, first dinosaur, and then first flowering plant, which was in that terms it's recent, like 125 million years ago. And if you think about humans, we just arrived here like nearly 200, sorry, 2 million years ago. So we are the, I mean, we have evolved like recently than these beetles or the plants. So next, I'm going to talk about the evolutionary adaptations, what evolution or like this 300 million of evolution has changed in terms of adaptation, or like how did this evolutionary adaptation made these beetles successful. So first most important adaptation is that the wings. So they have started sclerotizing their four wings, so that become very hard, and that started giving them protection for the wings and water retention, and also some beetles use that as a camouflage. So when you see flying beetles, so they do not fly with the elytra. Elytra is just the outer covering that covers the body as well as the wings. And next we have the stag beetles. So sorry, next we have the specialized mouth parts. So these mouth parts, so each beetle family has adapted to certain different modification of mouth parts, though they have the chewing type of mouth parts, but the shape and size is different. And why? It's because mainly because of their biology and the feeding patterns. So for example, longhorn beetles, you might have seen the longhorn beetles, they have very sharp mandibles. So the reason of like having the sharp mandibles is to cut the wood. So that's the reason. This is the front view of longhorn beetle that you see, and this helps them. The strong mandibles helps them to cut the wood, harden wood. Then we have weevils. As I mentioned, they have the stout or the rostrum, very narrow part of their head, which with the help of that they can eat, they can bore into the seeds, or they can eat on plant leaves. And then next we have stag beetles. So these stag beetles, so what you see on right hand side, these all beetles belongs to the same species. So these are not different beetles, they are the same species. This is just a variation within one species. So if you go from left, the smallest to biggest, the smallest is gonna be the female, that they do not have these antlers. So what we call the jaws, that's not the feeding or the that's not a part of mouth, that's not a mouth part, that's just an extension. Like the deer, they have antlers, this is the same kind of modification. So why do they need these antlers when there is no reason, like they do not feed with this, right? So the main reason of this is the sexual selection. So as you can see, the smallest is going to be the female. So female do not have these antlers, whereas male, they do have these antlers. So they use these antlers as a sexual selection, and also use as a male combat. So here the figure on left hand side, it shows that the fighting between two male stag beetles. So they are mainly used for sexual selection and also for fighting. And third, very important adaptation in terms of beetles evolution is that the symbiotic relationship with the microorganism. So when I say symbiotic relationship, what that means is like these beetles, throughout the course of their history, they have evolved or they have the microorganisms, the partners, like different kind of bacterias uh, inside their gut that helps them to digest tough plant materials and adapt to the new plant. So this, what this figure here shows, that this is one Cassidine beetle, which is called commonly called as tortoise beetle. They feed on a variety of plants. So how can they feed on different variety of plants? So the main reason of that is that the symbiotic relationship. So because of the certain bacteria they have, they gonna feed, they help them digest those plant toxins, and that's how they feed on different variety of plants. So until this point we talked about beetle diversity, then we talked about the beetle evolution. Now we're gonna talk about the beetles as a food. So when I was first introduced to this topic was when I moved to A3, and when I was working on beetles, edible insect beetles project. That's where I really got to know that beetles can be eaten. So until that time, I had no idea about beetles as a food. So why would we need to care about, or why would we consider beetles as food? So one of the main reason is that the Earth's population is, or the world population, human population is day by day is increasing. So here we have the UN report which shows that during 1990s there were 5.3 billion. The population, world population was 5.3 billion, and by 2017 it was 7.6. And there are estimates that suggest that by 2050, from like 25 years from now, it's gonna be 9.8, and 75 years from now it's gonna be 11.2 billion. World population, it's gonna increase day by day. So then, if it is gonna increase, the conventional meat products like chicken, pig, or beef, it's not gonna be enough. So what should we do, that if the conventional meat production is not gonna be sustainable, then, well, we have an option, and that's going to be the insects. So why not edible insects? Because they are highly nutritious, and they are efficient to farm, and they take much lower, and they have much lower environmental impact than the traditional livestock. So I have a figure here on the right hand side which shows the comparison between insects and conventional livestock. So to obtain, so I'm gonna explain what this comparison means. So to obtain 1 kilogram of protein, what we have to do, we have to feed conventional livestock 7.7 kg of feed, and insects, we in that compare, here we have the cricket, we have to give just 1.7 kg of food. And then when we think about the environmental impact, so the environmental impact using conventional livestock is going to be very high, because the carbon dioxide and methane gas produced by the conventional meat production, it's going to be very high than compared to the insect. So if you look at the methane gas, it's going to be 114 grams, whereas the insect food, it's going to be less than 5 grams of methane, right? And then we have water requirements. So to feed, to have this conventional livestock production, you need like 15,000 liters of water, whereas when you compare that with the insect, it's just going to be 15.4 liters of water, right? And one of the main reason that people started considering insect as a future food is also due to the land requirement. So like the land requirement in conventional food production, livestock food production, is going to be 200 square meter, whereas insects going to take a very less amount of land. So that these are the main reasons that drawn attention of scientists, and they started thinking about an alternative food source, insects being one of them. So now beetles as food. And so here I'm just going to focus on beetles rather than all edible insects, so that can be another topic for discussion. So over 2 billion people worldwide eat insects regularly. So currently we have nearly 8 billion people, right? So 2 billion people eat these insects, especially all kind of insects, regularly. So that's not new. This is like old age tradition that has been passed down from generations to generations. So if you go to the ethnic tribes even in northeast India, if you visit there, you will find these insects are being sold in markets, and these are being collected regularly on even on daily basis depending on the season of insects, and these are being eaten daily. So all these continents like Asia, Oceania, North America, South America, and even Africa, all these continents eats these beetles, and we in scientific terms we call eating insect as entomophagy. So entomo means insects, so it's nothing but the consumption of insects. And like overall there are more than 2000 species of insect that being eaten. And when you look at the graph, it shows that coleopterans, again beetles, is one of the largest order being consumed among the edible insects. So there are around 705 beetle species that have been reported as edible beetles. But this number is just, again, this number can be really really huge when we compare to the diversity of beetle. But the what we see currently here is because of the less number of documentation. So what one of the thing that we were doing when we were in A3, that we were documenting the knowledge of these edible insects from northeast India, and we have compiled a huge data set that we are working. So we were working under Dr. Priyadarsanan Dharmarajan. So he was leading that project, and we were having. So right now we are compiling that list as well. So what you see currently here, it's gonna be way bigger than once we add our observations. And now we have some of the beetle examples of beetles. So what you see on your screen right now, these are all edible beetles. So all different kinds of beetles, from terrestrial to aquatic, all kind of beetles are being eaten in northeast India. So the reason I have included these images is because that these were collected by ourselves when we were working in A3. So now you might be wondering, how can you eat these beetles when they are like fully sclerotized and they have this hard elytra and everything, right? So I'm gonna talk about that, how you can eat these insects. So mode of consumption is gonna be different. So different ethnic tribes prepare food differently. So first is the frying preparation of beetles. So for that, we many ethnic tribe use the frying as a method. So what they do in certain cases. So on right hand side of top right hand side, what you see is it's mostly gonna be I believe it's they are longhorn beetles. So images specifically is not from northeast India, because I couldn't find specific images to the beetles. So I have taken these images from internet, and these are from Thailand. So we also have seen the similar kind of preparation when we were working in northeast India. So these beetles, what they do is that they remove the appendages, as in legs and also elytra, so that the hard part will be taken away, and then the what it's remained is just the flesh, right? And in the left, in the bottom figure, you see all these aquatic beetles. They are fried using green chili or different kind of herbs. So again, the preparation method depends on or they it can change based on different ethnic communities. And then we have the roasting. So for roasting, mostly larvae, pupae, and adults can be used. So again, this is the pupae that is roasted, and the some beetle larvae they roast because of the smoky flavor. Some people prefer smoky flavor. It's better than the boiling or frying. So that's the one reason that even larvae, pupae, and adults are being roasted. And then sorry, then lastly we have the boiling. So some beetle larvae are boiled with different herbs or even in some cases spices. So the image you see here is taken during uh, I believe it's 2021. One of our field assistant, they have taken this image from northeast India. So these beetle larvae are the cerambycid larvae. So this cerambycid, the reason that they use this cerambycid larvae is because they can be really huge. They can grow up to 5 to 6 centimeters. So that's the reason. So if you have like more of these larvae, then the amount of food required is going to be less, right? So what they have done, so the harvesting of this beetle larvae is very destructive method, because they again it can impact the ecosystem or the trees. So whenever harvester go for they go for harvesting these beetle larvae, they chop down the live tree and they have to take out all these larvae from the tree, because these larvae lives inside the wood. So they have to chop down entire tree. So that becomes like huge problem as well, because if you are chopping each tree day by day, that's gonna have the larger impact on ecosystem as well, right? So that is another reason that people started promoting insect farming as well. So if we farm these beetles or any kind of insects, then we do not need to harm the ecosystem or the trees as well. And then we have the another important aspect of beetles in ethnic communities is their cultural significance. So we all know the jewel beetles, right? So these jewel beetles, due to their metallic green and very vibrant colors, these beetles are being used in jewelry. So this photo was taken by our colleague Avika. She when she was doing field work in Nagaland. So in Nagaland, when she was doing field work, so we had shown when she was doing household survey, she had shown this image of jewel beetles, and that's how the household surveys uh, occurs, like because you have to show some kind of primary literature, sorry, secondary literature to know the knowledge about beetles. And what we found out, or what she found out at that time, that point, that some of the ethnic tribes, they have shown this beetle jewelry. So they use this beetle jewelry during function, or their it's a part of their tradition. So these all what you see on this figure, these are real beetles. They have made the jewelry out of it. And next, along with the entomophagy, which is consumption of insects, these insects also believed to be used as medicine. So again, a disclaimer, this is going to be beliefs. So we do not have any scientific knowledge, or we nobody has literally scientifically tested whether the eating insect helps as a medicine or not. So it is purely based on the household surveys about the knowledge of beetles, about knowledge of beetles among different ethnic tribes. So in Nagaland, these beetle larvae are mainly, they believe that eating these larvae can treat pneumonia, or the water cooked with the larvae is an excellent muscle balm. And similarly, in Manipur, people believe that boiling water from this beetle larvae can be used as a cure to cough. So again, I would like to mention that these are beliefs. So we do not know whether they really it really helps or not, but they believe that these kind of use of insect in medicine helps them. And now we are coming to the last part of our talk, and here I have just compiled few slides or like beetle field guide, like how to observe or what to observe in beetle. So first thing that if you are the beginner, then what you would want to know is the size and shape of the insect. So when you look at the beetle, look at the size, how long they are, then are they slender, are they round, they're flattened, tiny, giants, because like you see the different diversity here, right? So they can range from, so you cannot just put one bracket of like, oh, 10 mm of beetle is 10 mm of size of insect is going to be beetle, so that we cannot put that bracket on these beetles. Then color patterns, so color and patterns, so mostly these beetles are metallic, some of them are camouflage, and they have the vibrant colors. So that's going to be one way of looking at beetles. And of course, if it is a dung beetle, sometimes they are entirely black. And then antenna, so as we talked before, the antenna is going to be very short or it's going to be very long. So different types of antennal, they have different types of antenna among different groups, so that's going to be one character to look out. And one of the important character going to be elytra. So these beetles, they have this elytra, none of the other insect have this modification, so it's going to be easy to identify these beetles. And then we have flowers, sorry, we have habitat. So where do you find this beetles? On flowers, sometimes under bark, in soil, near water, and also in dung. So these gonna be different habitats that you would want to look at when you're trying to find beetle. And lastly, you can also identify beetle based on their feeding pattern or the flying, and like for example, rolling dung is going to give you an exact observation about the dung beetle. If it is glowing, that it's gonna be fireflies as well. So behavior also gonna help identify these beetles. And lastly, time of day, like there are some beetles which are active during time, and there are some which are active during nights. Of course, fireflies being one of them, which are active during night time. So if you look at these different characters or features, you would be able to identify uh, beetle. Then, to conclude this talk, I would like to give a brief summary. So, beetles are everywhere. We have seen that these are like ancient survivors, and they are master of adaptations. They have different kind of adaptations, even from feeding on different plants to different kind of materials. So, also beetles shows us the creativity of evolution, like from fireflies to dung beetles. Like there are different kinds of beetles, so I have just taken two names here, but there are different kinds of beetles. They show us the creativity of evolution. And lastly, this is the important part, when next time you see a beetle, take a pause, and then you are looking and just think that you are looking at a creature that has carried around a history of 300 millions of history. So yeah, I think that's it about my talk. I hope I have finished well within the time limit. And if you have any question, I would like to take.